would Beijing prefer to see a President Harris or a President Trump?
I think that Beijing is ambivalent. As far as we can tell, of course, we don't get a lot of insight into what goes on in Zhongnanhai, the capital, where all the political leaders live and work in Beijing. But no matter who wins, there is going to be a China hawk in the White House next year. If it's Harris and Walz, they've shown themselves to be a continuation of Biden's policies on China. And Biden, in many ways, was continuing the policies of former President Trump. If former President Trump becomes president again, I think we know kind of what we're going to get because he initiated many of these very tough policies on China. So I think if you're sitting in Beijing, either candidate is not good news for your domestic policies. I think it becomes a question of who they think they can work best with. And in some ways, they might feel like they have a little bit more continuity with Harris and Walz, both of whom have traveled there in a private and public capacity, whereas Trump is seen as much more unpredictable. But in that unpredictability, perhaps you can find some way to manipulate his behavior. So I really think it's a coin toss. I think that they see the US election as destabilizing for US-China ties, no matter who wins.
Obviously, Beijing, you don't get to hear, as you say, what they're talking about in Zhongnanhai. But sometimes you can get clues from what academics say. Is there anything that's being talked about in academic circles, David, that gives us a little more of a clue as to what the leadership is thinking?
There's a prominent scholar named Wang Jisi in Beijing. He published an article on the foreign policy. What he wrote is also that he don't see the big difference between the Republican and the Democrats, their views to China. What is different is just their means to counter China, maybe by tariff, but the different portion, the different percents. But generally speaking, there is no big difference between these two parties.
And how is the Chinese state media reporting this election? You know, sometimes they go big on things that happen in Western democracies, often not elections though. David, how are they reporting this election?
What impressed me the most is when the former President Donald Trump experienced the 2 times assassination attempts. The Chinese media reported largely, and it's also make the audience feel that the democratic system is kind of chaos. Yeah, and probably make some of the people in China even more question about the democratic society. Yes.
Are they going big on it in China, do you think, Emily, given that it's US election, it's quite a pivotal election?
There's a lot of coverage, but I think that the coverage is very quiet on whether or not they'd prefer a candidate. And as David pointed out, a lot of the coverage is often highlighting just how messy and uncertain the election is, rather than putting weight on who they think is going to win, who's up, who's down. That's not the focus of the coverage.
And what insights are you getting, David, on how the Chinese public are viewing this election?
When we look on the social media in China, like Weibo and Weixin, I found some of the interesting things is the netizen in China, they're really focused on what the role the Elon Musk play, because the Elon Musk, the CEO of the Tesla, he also enjoyed the huge interest in China, and also have the friendly relationship with Beijing. So some netizens just trying to figure out will Elon Musk will play any role like the mediator between China and America in the future if the Donald Trump get elected. I think it's quite interesting for me.